Some of Our Thoughts. Hi, I'm Sarah.
And I'm Carter.
And this is Some of Our Thoughts. So today, episode 4.
Nebbiolo.
Nebbiolo is the wine we'll be talking about today.
Thrilled about it.
We have an amazing food pairing.
Steak.
And an amazing vinyl pairing.
Iggy Pop. Amen. Cannot wait. We've just been so excited about this one all day.
Yes,
we have. I'm just geeking out.
So Nebbiolo is it's top 3 favorite varietals for me.
And me.
Mm-hmm.
Both of us.
So good.
So good.
Every time one of us is in a major city, we always peruse and look at the Nebbioli. I said Nebbioli.
Again. Oh, and she wrote it earlier today too, literally in the notes.
And I went, what's wrong with me?
So much.
Nebbiolo. So much. Nebbiolo.
We have this really great bottle that we're revisiting that I guess was one of my Christmas presents to you.
It was.
A 6er of Nebbies.
What a gift, right? Am I right?
Yeah.
What a gift.
It was like, Merry Christmas. 3 things of wine. And your mom was like, oh, Jesus. Sarah was thrilled.
I was. So Nebbiolo is one of Italy's top reds, made famous by the Barolo region of Piedmont.
Yeah, we have one wine from Piedmont and one wine from Lombardy, which are 2 very predominant northern regions and most well known for Nebbiolo.
Mm-hmm. So this Nebbiolo, do you want to say the bottle name?
Yeah. I'm just gonna say our Pepe.
Okay.
Our Pepe.
Our Pepe.
Our Pepe.
Our Pepe.
Yeah, that's aggressive.
Sorry.
It's okay. The vineyard itself is called the Rosso di Valtellina, which is a very specific part of the Lombardy region, and it's known for its acidic sand that the grapevines grow in.
And this is the 2019 vintage in particular. When you're looking at this label, there's a long, skinny, really, really bright blood red label with a box inside of that, and it looks like a bunch of tally marks almost. Yeah. It's a really cool label because it's super simple, but it's really, really eye-catching and appealing.
The cork also has the name Our Pepe with a bunch of the slashes on it as well. And it just, I don't know, it's a very distinguishable bottle. You can just spot it really easily, quickly. It has the blue tag for the DOC across the around the neck, which is what I always look for when I'm in the Italian section.
Definitely.
That's the very specific appellation that
Notes for days, ma'am.
Notes for days, man. Episodes for days, man.
Episodes for days. True dat.
Anyway, it's a blue tag.
It's a blue tag. Blue and white tag. Blue, gray, white tag. So this wine in particular, when we opened it up and poured it, just smelling it, we both looked at each other and went, cherry bomb!
We did.
From the Runaways. But truly, oh my goodness. Cherry on the nose, cherry on the palate. It's pretty tannic, but 2019 is definitely considered a young Nebbiolo, so I think that's really why. It would age absolutely beautiful, this bottle, but I like young Nebbiolos.
And also we're impatient.
Mostly that.
But yeah, that's a really great thing to get to talk about with this specific grape varietal. The other bottle that we're going to talk about later is another exceptional bottle for aging. And not all wine is ageable. I think that's really important to say right away. Just like not all wine is suitable or necessarily needs to be decanted, not every single bottle of wine should or could be aged.
Yeah, agreed.
I think the thing that makes it easy to age is it's really in the structure of the grape, like DNA, it's very sturdy.
Mm-hmm.
It withstands time and it maintains its integrity.
Definitely. I think I read that the Nebbiolo varietal itself is over 300 years old.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Mm.
Which is crazy.
Yeah,
so great.
Very long time.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like, I mean, gosh, just red fruit for days, blackberry, and I don't really get plum. It's been a while since I've like eaten a plum, so I kind of
that's really fair. A lot of times when you read literally anything on wine, and it'll always give you like
some options.
Yeah, some options, and it'll always give you like mostly if it's a red, it'll give you a fruit option, and then specifically which stone fruit. Honestly, that's an option a lot, and it's like, oh, plum, nectarine, peach, and it's like
apricot.
I'm like, I think I just need to go to the store and buy a bunch of fruit.
Truthfully,
which it really does help. Any new flavor, herbs too.
Oh, totally.
This Nebbiolo, it has a little herbiness to it, but like fresh, bright herbs.
Maybe like a rosemary or. Maybe not quite. I'm trying to think of so I like to think of tasting
like
notes.
Basil, but
basil, yeah.
Not like super strong basil.
I like to think of tasting notes as like index cards in my brain that I can pull up and say like, what does a strawberry taste like? Am I getting that here?
Right.
And right now I can't think of plum, but
no, I don't get a lot of plum.
But then like maybe some licorice, maybe a little bit of vanilla or leather.
Yeah.
But cherry specifically.
Cherry.
We've just had like the best day listening to music and talking about this wine.
Specifically to the vinyl pairing we're talking about today.
Iggy Pop. Okay, so this for the Rosso di Valentina, Valtellina, my bad, I'm sorry. It first made its appearance, it says, in 2003 after a sweltering summer. They were able to isolate this specific grape, the Nebbiolo grape, and create this version of that's called the Arpepe. And
every time you say Arpepe, you know what?
Arpepe.
No, I'm picturing that little shrimp from the Muppets, Pepe. Our Pepe. And now in my mind, he has a bottle of this wine in a glass. It's great. We should keep going with it.
Well, so we are English speaking. I have to constantly look up pronunciations on YouTube for everything. And when you're self-taught as we are and just read and see things, I mean, I could be pronouncing this completely wrong. But I don't think I am.
I don't think you are either.
Thanks. I'm choosing to ignore it, and we're just going to continue on like with all the confidence.
So this vineyard, how old is this vineyard?
This vineyard, oh my gosh. Okay, it was unbelievably established in 1860.
What?
Yes. It says it was reborn in 1984, but it's I believe 5 generations. Yes, 5 generations in the same family. So it says it was reborn in 1984 and brought up in 2004, which I'm not sure what that means specifically, but it may be like the newer generations kind of adapted their winemaking processes, or, you know, they started updating the DOCs that year for that region of Italy, and maybe they needed or just felt inspired to change some stuff. That's the language that they said on the website.
On the winemaking end, you always find really cool facts about the winemaking in all the wines, at least the last few weeks. Like the last one, what was it? Like, a chestnut barrel was crazy.
Yeah.
And then I think the one before, which it's not, I mean, it's still pretty common, the clay amphoras to ferment their wine in. What do these people do? Because this wine's delicious.
Let's see. They use concrete tanks. And they are of the opinion, and it says in quotes, it says, "It takes the time it takes."
Oh. I mean,
yeah,
it does.
Yeah.
If you're doing it
correctly.
Yeah, honestly.
They're
like that.
Also hand harvested, as are all the plant protection processes for that appellation. That's the DOC in Lombardy, in Valtellina. They all have to be hand harvested by the law.
I wonder how many people are on their team.
Oh, I don't know. It's 13 acres, so it's not big. It's like,
That's not super big. It's
No.
still a bit of work, but
Sure. Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, how many tons of grapes do you yield from V&V just on the estate? It's like
it
8.
heavily depends. It's been up to 9, I think,
Yeah.
9 or 10.
The years I've done it was like 7 tons, 8 tons.
It was definitely less last year because we had that horrible freeze.
Yes.
Like a lot less from the 2 vineyards, but
a little bit of damage.
we're hopeful for this year.
I am too. I love
Yeah.
V&V.
Me too. Shout out work. Hey.
Hey. So, the specific wine, it's in Sondrio, Italy. That's in the Lombardy region. And I wish y'all could taste it because it is scrumptious.
So I had a little snippet about the different regions of Nebbiolo, like the southern Piedmont, northern Piedmont, and oh my God, what's wrong with me? Valtellina?
I'd say Valtellina.
Valtellina. So Valtellina, it has the notes are more of like cranberry, hibiscus, peony, dried herbs, and clove. And it says, in neighboring Lombardy, Nebbiolo grows in a northern alpine valley that opens to Lake Como. The temperatures are much cooler here, which results in a very elegant Nebbiolo wine with herbal and floral notes and medium tannin, kind of similar to a cool climate Pinot Noir.
Yeah.
Which
that's
comparatively, if you're in northern Piedmont, the wines from that part have a lighter, more elegant dry style with softer tannin that's a little more fruity. So that's more like sour cherry, rosehip, tobacco, and leather. And then if you're in southern Piedmont, the boldest and highest tannin expressions of Nebbiolo come from that region, like the Barolo Barbaresco. And it's more of like spices and like really ripe roses, licorice, carob, like cacao.
A little more earthy.
A lot more earthy. So yeah, and ours, if you look at it, it's an absolutely beautiful color too. It's a really
ruby.
Yeah,
with, like,
super bright. It's
garnet
gorgeous.
reflections. It's gorgeous. The cool thing too, if y'all want to have a visual picture to think of, any of the Italian countryside, pictures that you would see online or in a book of the terraced vineyards.
Yeah.
Where this in Valtellina specifically has very densely planted terraces, and that's just how they have to grow on the side of those hills. So they're not necessarily on a slope. They are literally built into the terraces that are tiered going into the hill.
That's super cool.
Just a beautiful visual to think of when you're drinking this wine or listening to us talk about it.
And we were talking before on the way here actually about, I mentioned the Barolo and Barbaresco, and Carter said, to make it short and sweet and like to make it sense, all Barolo is Nebbiolo, but not all Nebbiolo is Barolo. Could you explain to our listeners just a little bit?
Sure. Barolo has its own DOC, and within those, they all have certain requirements that have to be met legally by like wine law, Italian wine law.
Wow.
So Barolo has a lot of very specific conditions that have to be met to get that label, and essentially it's like the Oprah Book Club of wine label. Like,
honestly,
if you're just wandering the wine section, the Italian part specifically, and see this blue strip across the neck, the brown one is the DOCG, and that's even a step above. That's more intricate and more complex and more requirements that need to be met. But these are the ones that you age for 30 months. I mean, it's a long time to get these wines. This is like 2019 vintage, for instance. They probably just released it.
Probably.
It's probably. I mean, that's how new it is, and that's really unusual. I mean, we'll talk about aging on the other one, but for this specific one, I love it just right out of the bottle. I think it's fresh. I think it's
so good,
yummy.
We actually we were thinking about doing a third bottle, but we opened it about an hour ago and went, nope.
I dumped it. Dumped it in your yard.
Yeah, this one's just so beautiful. It's like, no, it's special. It needs its own.
It needs a moment.
But it does. It needs a moment. Gosh, that color is so beautiful. Oh my goodness.
Yummy. So do you want to talk about the other one that we like too? Because that's just an interesting little bottle to talk about.
Oh, so the name of it, I'll let you say, but I'll describe it a little bit.
I say Travellini.
Travellini, that's right.
It's got a little G in there, but I think it's silent.
I think it is as well. So this bottle was in that 6-pack of Nebbiolos that Carter gifted me for Christmas as well.
So funny. It's just the cutest little thing.
And this bottle, the glass itself is so wonky.
It's hand blown, and it has little dimples in it, and every bottle is different.
And they're just like slightly like, it's very sleek, and then it goes, whoa, and then it goes back down.
Yeah. If it could talk, it would go, whoa.
That's what I hear when I see it.
God
so
bless.
I ended up saving and opening this bottle on Christmas Day at my family's house, and it's one of those typical Christmases where me and Ryan get there, and now we have a kid, right? So, like, Lucas is there. He's, like, 6 months old. My mom is running around the kitchen trying to get dinner ready, fighting with her mom, who's, like, 95. And somehow, like, hey, it's Christmas, it's family. My dad's, like, flipping through the channels on the TV. You know, it's Christmas in America, Christmas in Texas, for sure. They also live on a cattle ranch, so, like, I'm out in the middle of nowhere surrounded by cows. It's great. I love doing Christmas. Christmas is the best. So, of course, we unload everything, and me and Ryan just lock eyes, knowing, open up the wonk. And so we grab this.
Give me that wonk.
Give me that wonk. We grabbed this crazy, I don't know if it's a beautiful bottle. I think it's a really awesome bottle. I think it might still be somewhere in my house holding water for like a plant or something.
Yeah, I think you've propagated some pothos in there.
Definitely. Yeah, it's gotten some use. But we opened it and, like, you know, you swirl, you smell, you sip, and then we were like, oh, man, it tasted like Christmas.
Oh,
it literally tasted like Christmas. Not so much as like baking spices, but very much like rosemary and thyme. And that one I would say tasted more like plum and like red currants.
Okay,
it was a little more jammy, like in flavor, even though the body was still like probably like medium. It was full of flavor. It was so good. Well, blackberry too. It was really good.
So a lot darker. And Nebbiolo is a black grape, which I think is worth mentioning. For that particular bottle too, the grapes are crushed and macerated for about 15 days in stainless steel, which is pretty common. There's the alcoholic fermentation and then the malolactic fermentation that makes it a little bit creamier.
For sure.
And then and it's just that takes place in stainless steel tanks at a controlled temperature, which is very common. But this is the one that they age for 30 months in Slovenian oak casks.
Slovenian oak casks.
Yeah. Just dropping
I wonder why.
Knowledge bombs all over you right now. Sorry.
I'm just thinking about Luka Doncic and she said Slovenian. I'm gonna be a minute. Hold on.
Oh, and they're all different sizes too, which I think is interesting because it's a pretty small operation from what I've gathered off their website. They have different sizes to kind of experiment for their tasting trials.
Oh, wow.
And they typically will go to the smaller Slovenian oak cask or Slovenian, because they can concentrate it, which is unusual. And 30 months is a very long time to age a wine before
That's a really interesting process.
That's right.
I've never heard of that.
And then they still, for an additional few months of refinement before they release it in the bottle, about 3 or 4 extra months after that 30-month oak soak.
Oak soak? Amazing. So...
We don't have that one in the room with us, but we felt really inspired to talk about it because it was such a cool bottle. I was so happy to find it. That one has the DOC approval as well. And I just picked them up at Central Market in Austin.
Both of them?
Mm-hmm. Both of these, yeah.
Do you want to do food next or vinyl?
Let's talk about steaks because I am so into steaks. I was about to say something.
Like, where are we going with this?
I had to really rein it in there.
So we have this thing every Sunday after we record. we'll get in the car all hyped and pumped about, oh my God, that was the best episode ever. Every episode is the best episode ever also.
I think so, too.
After we finish, we're like, that was the best one ever. That was the best one yet. Oh my God, we deserve a steak.
Wagyu.
Every Sunday, we're like, steaks?
Always.
And it always happens. Yeah. So we love steak. It's a love language in itself.
Yes.
So I am extremely spoiled, once again, by Ryan, my other half. He's an amazing cook, but his fried chicken, superior. His steaks, I cannot go to a fine dining restaurant anymore and order a steak because I just end up pissed.
Yeah, furious.
It is not anywhere near as good.
He has ruined our lives.
He's ruined our lives. And, you know, at first I thought maybe he's just cooking my steak perfectly because, like, he knows me so well.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
But then he started cooking steaks for
me.
you, for Carter. And then I was like, ooh.
You bitch.
Yeah. No, I was like, okay, he's just like, he's got it.
Yeah, he's got
it. He has that weird, like, magic when he's cooking something. Well, no, not when he's cooking something. When he's making steak, where he'll go, it's ready.
Yeah. Oh, it's like,
he just knows.
It's like everything shifts and like, it's like a feeling. It's like, yep, it's done.
And if you know Ryan, you know he's a little scatterbrained.
Just a little.
It's amazing. It's part of why I love him because I am also. But we both have like our things. And for him, it's the timing on a steak.
He's got it.
Or any meat, actually.
Yeah. No,
he's good at cooking meat. That's why I like never do.
All right.
So his method, he does a reverse sear method. And we've tried a few other ones, but for us, it just always cooks perfectly this way. And it cooks evenly all the way through, which is really key if you're cooking a really great steak. So I have a recipe for a New York strip and for a filet mignon. And the only thing that's different is the oven time and then the temperature of the oven as well. So what you're going to need is either your filet mignons, your New York strips, however many you're doing. I would do like no more than 3 at a time usually. You want to season them. Let them rest after you get them, when you get them fresh from the butcher, and especially if you take them out of the fridge, if they've been in there for a little bit, let them rest to room temperature, which usually takes about 30 minutes or so.
It's so important.
It's extremely important. And what that's going to do is it's going to make it have a really nice, beautiful, and crispy outer skin once you cook it. Oh, crispy. It's so freaking good. So you get your filet, you get your New York strip out. You want to pat it dry after it's properly at room temperature. And then you want to coat it in oil. We usually do olive oil. Coat it in olive oil and then salt it and then use pepper. I always use just cracked pepper. And for salt, before you cook it, I'm not going to do a finishing salt. Don't worry. Just some nice sea salt or like Himalayan pink salt is great.
I actually thought the Mignon on that steak he made us in September. And it's like the steak from September. It was like so legendary. I think it was September 30th. Like I remember the day.
That's so good.
The finishing salt was great on that one. But you don't need it on every steak.
You don't have to. A little bit at the end is just, it's also really nice to look at. But yeah, cracked pepper. Get yourself a pepper mill, crack it. It does not have to be fancy. Again, don't think about the like 2-foot wooden ones they have in restaurants. Like just get one where you can put crushed red peppercorns in it and then you have cracked pepper.
Precisely.
So if you're cooking a New York strip, you want to cook it for 12 minutes on 300 degrees. If you're doing a filet mignon, you want to cook it for 30 minutes at 200 degrees. They're obviously different cuts of meat, and filet is usually a lot thicker, and that's why that temperature change is going to come in. And you're going to cook it on top of a cooling rack. It's like a cookie sheet, and then you do that wire rack on top. That's what you're going to cook it on. So after you season it, salt, pepper, you're going to bake it for those times. And then after you're done with that, when it's almost finished, you need to have a cast iron skillet heated up really hot. Because what you're going to do is after you bake those steaks, they're immediately going to go from that cooling rack, that baking sheet, and it's going to be seared on both sides in a cast iron skillet with the high smoke point oil for 1 minute. And then you're going to add half a stick of butter, 1 whole garlic clove, and then it's your choice of sprigs of herbs. We usually do rosemary, some thyme. Honestly, that's usually it because I love rosemary. And it doesn't really pick up a ton of flavor, but just enough to have a little hint of it. And with that garlic, it's so good. And then you're going to reduce the heat after you've added all that stuff. You're going to reduce the heat to medium while basting and flipping those steaks for 2 to 3 minutes. Then you're going to take them off the skillet. You're going to rest it for 5 minutes. We always say rest it for no more than 5 minutes. It might be a little bit juicier, but you want your steak hot, right? Hot. And the longer it sits there, the more like lukewarm it's getting. So serve it hot. I would only do a 5-minute rest for it. And then you're going to slice it, and it's going to be amazing.
It's going to be perfection.
So
you're welcome.
Right? My favorite way to eat filet mignon, which is what we usually get, Carter and I. Ryan always does a New York strip, and then we usually get fillets. Cause,
we bougie.
Yeah. So my favorite way to eat steak, a few different ways, but with a Nebbiolo in particular, that Nebbiolo, that Valentina bottle we're talking about, because it's kind of an astringent, grippy, light Nebbiolo with those bright cherry flavors, you want something really heavy to pair with it so it kind of cuts through the fat and it really pairs beautifully. So I like to make a creamy polenta with a mushroom sauce and then put all that in a bowl and then put the steak on top of it in strips. So for my creamy polenta, thank you, Jaida De Laurentiis from Food Network.
She is so good.
She has 8,000 teeth, if you've ever seen her smile.
Big, beautiful, pearly whites.
Perfect, beautiful teeth, yeah. She's has one of those happy faces where I'm like, oh, I do want to cook like you.
I want to be like you.
I grew up watching her with my mom, and I've just always
too.
Yeah, I've always really liked her.
She was like my first Food Network babe.
Oh, God, what's the other lady that like makes the cocktails at the end? Sandy something or other.
Oh, I thought you were talking about Ina Garten.
Oh, I love her.
It's literally like WW.
Oh, I think her name is Sandra Lee.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, well, and she like jailbroke like cookie box mixes. Anyway, I'm so off topic. Sorry. The creamy polenta recipe from Jaida. You need 6 cups of water, 2 teaspoons of salt, 1 3/4 cup of yellow cornmeal. I use Bob Mills. And then her recipe says 3 tablespoons of butter. Well, your girl usually uses a whole stick.
Gots to. It makes all the difference.
Mm-hmm. And what you do is you boil 6 cups of water with the salt. Bring that to a high boil for a couple minutes. And then you're going to slowly stir in and whisk your polenta, that yellow cornmeal, that is. You're going to whisk it. You're going to put a lid on it, let it do its thing for 5-10 minutes. You're going to open it. You're going to whisk it. You basically repeat this whole process for about 20 to 30 minutes is how long I usually do it, honestly. I'll check it. I'll stir it. And then I'll slowly add the butter. Like I'll cut it into little cubes and then I'll slowly add it. But I honestly do use like an entire stick of butter.
That's why it's so good.
It makes it so creamy. It's the perfect vehicle to just like and pop everything into your mouth. It's such a great bite.
I think it's also worth it to say, Sarah will always add extra butter and extra garlic. And if you love garlic, you just got to lean into the garlic. Do it. Like,
I do love garlic.
Always just twice what they recommend if you're a flavor lover, food lover like we are.
And if you have cheese, like a really nice Parmesan or any type of like hard nutty cheese, like an Italian
about that
cheese.
Orange one that we had? I wish I could remember.
Oh, I don't know what it was called.
But yeah, like just an experiment with different cheeses too with wines. Oh my gosh, what a fun night that is.
Yep. Whisk the cheese into, and it's just going to make that texture so nice. So you got your steak, you got your polenta. Also, as you're making your polenta, because like I said, it usually takes me about 30 minutes, I'll do that quick little mushroom sauce. So I just slice some mushrooms, just like Bella mushrooms typically is all you need. Slice it, sear it in some olive oil so it has a nice little char on it, and then add a little bit of the wine that you're drinking, that Nebbiolo, and all you're going to do is cook that over high heat for about 10-15 minutes or so, and then lower it, and it's just going to thicken a little bit, and that's what you're going to put on top of your polenta. So you got your bowl, your creamy polenta, your mushroom sauce, and then you're going to lay those steak slices on top of it with your Nebbiolo. And then we're going to listen to
Raw Power by Iggy and the Stooges.
Amen.
So, Sarah and I love Almost Famous. We actually listened to the soundtrack on your birthday and just kept flipping the album back and forth.
Yes, we did.
Such a great soundtrack, but Philip Seymour Hoffman, rest in power, King. He is, I live my life as a living tribute to that man, I think. That character.
Lester Bangs.
Literally hear her say it every time I think of his name, which is often. I hear Sarah go, Lester Bangs.
She texted me that this morning. You have to say Lester Bangs in your voice. And I was like, I don't know what she's talking about.
And then as soon as I said it, you were like, oh, yeah, the Lester Bangs voice. So at the very beginning of the movie, if in case you haven't seen it, I recommend watching it immediately if that's the case. In Almost Famous, the kid walks up to the window where he's like recording the studio bit, like in the radio station, and he goes, "Give me the Guess Who. Give me." They had the courage to be drunken buffoons, and we listened to that on the way over here. We're both just like, God, it's so good. And he goes, Iggy Pop, amen. And we just had to pick it for this wine. It was just give it. Like, it just made sense. It makes sense, guys.
And then he, like, puts the record on in the movie, and they're like, it's 10 a.m. Isn't it a little early for that?
Not for me.
Yeah, not for me. Iconic. So good.
Yeah, it's so good. And, like, I recognize the first track of this album it's called Search and Destroy. Mm-hmm. Off of The Life Aquatic, which is such a great scene because that's when he goes, "Get the hell off of my boat," and he like grabs that guy's gun, and it's just all of a sudden like this shootout with Bill Murray. Another iconic, legendary moment. And it just there were so many tracks on there that it was just fun to listen to today. Mm-hmm. Like we were drinking this wine outside, and like it's February right now, February 27th. The sun was shining. It was warm enough. We were like enjoying your patio before we came here, and it was just happy. It was just happiness.
Mm-hmm. And this bottle also is gonna look really cool next to that vinyl cover.
Oh yeah, we'll post it on the Instagram. Don't worry about it.
See it. Well, guys, I hope you had fun. I know I did.
I certainly did.
Any last-minute tidbits, Carter?
No, I had a lot of information on that second bottle that we were talking about, the little wonky dude.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I maybe got a chance to really mention it's from Piedmont, which is another major northern Italian wine region.
Yeah.
That particular family, it's called the Taub family, Taub, and they are 4 generations on a 59-acre vineyard.
Oh, wow.
And 55 of those acres are dedicated to vines, which is kind of like V&V in the sense that y'all have a lot of land that isn't a actual like vine. Yeah. But you have, the farm, you have the goats, you have a barn. I mean, and that's pretty common, but there's only... that's the majority of their land, and it's been there for quite some time. We call it Big Red. They call it Big Red.
They call it Big Red?
Yeah,
That's
that
cute.
bottle, it's called Big Red. Very bold, very tannic. They said that particular bottle, the reason they do the hand-blown glass is because it traps the tannins better.
What?
Right. And that's just kind of cute considering the bottle is such a visual appeal to, like picking it out. When I was standing in the wine section buying, wine for you, I was
buying
like
6 Nebbiolos.
You're my best friend. I can spoil you if I want to.
I'm not complaining.
And clearly, look, now we're talking about it on our podcast. So, Full circle. It's just a really cool, one of our favorite grape varietals, one of our favorite parts of the world. I love Italy. I think about it and it brings a tear to my eye. I can't wait to go back. And hopefully...
I can't wait to go.
Yeah, and I was going to say we should go. Let's go.
Let's go.
But yeah, just really beautiful mountainous. And then I just think of these tiered terraces with all of these grapes and like a beautiful Italian sunset. And I'm going to have a sip and just...
As you should.
Let that moment sink in.
Amazing. Well, thanks for listening, everybody. And as always, grab your favorite glass, put on your favorite record. Let's have some fun. Cheers.
Clink!
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.